Let's see.
Folks, this is Retro Reload, episode 24. I'm Marty McFly.
I'm T. Pugmire, BG Collect Admin.
Wait, what? I have no idea what the hell I just did with my screen.
But that was Red Blaze.
I'm Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh, I'm Christopher Lloyd.
All right, it's gonna be one of those kind of shows, folks. Bear with us. All right, this is Retro Reload. I'm Dash V, never known as Marty McFly. I wish I was, because he's like super cool. But anyway, Fighter Pilot. We've got some really interesting topics today, don't we?
Yes, we do.
So the two topics that we have, you want to throw them out to us?
Yes, digital gaming, goods, the bads, do you like them, do you hate them? And manuals, do your hard copy manuals, games need manuals? Yes or no?
Do your games need manuals? That's a really good one. Why don't we start off with that one? That was actually supposed to be a topic last week, and we ended up too many tangents. We didn't quite get to it. So my goodness, I have no idea what
There we go.
My goodness. It was like an elephant past gas.
That's an odd way of putting it.
Anyway.
Okay.
Nobody's owning up to that one.
I was muted.
Not it.
It was not me. Everybody saw nothing. You were the only one without video, Red Blaze. We're blaming you.
Hey, it was me, alright? I just sneezed out of nowhere.
Okay, all right. A sneeze we can handle. I thought maybe you'd have to take care of a blowout or something.
It's one of those times you think you have to fart, but like, oh, nope.
I know, right? That's the worst, when you got a fart that fooled you. All right.
Anyway.
Do we have a show?
Back on topic.
We have a show, right? Do we have a show? Are we live? I'm kind of
It wouldn't be a
delirious
show
now.
without technical difficulties.
There's something. We're waiting for the dust cloud to settle.
Manuals.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, Manuel. All right. So, me with manuals, it really depends, I guess, on the game. I started out like not really caring if I had the manual or not. Some games I still don't really care. Like if it's a Game Boy game, like an original Game Boy game, if I have the manual, that's cool and all, but you know I can live without it. Original Nintendo games, I used to be totally cool without the manuals, and then I came across a stack of manuals at a local mom and pop shop for most of the games that I had, picked them up, and then suddenly I had to have the manuals for my remaining games. And then when I looked on eBay and stuff, I had to keep looking until I found a copy of the cart that came with the manual. So newer games, obviously, if they come with a manual, I have to have it. So I'd say newer, I mean everything from PS1 up. Once they came out with the form factor where the manual is within the case just doesn't feel, it doesn't feel right. The game doesn't feel complete unless it's got its manual to go with it. But that's just me. What do you guys think? Mr. Nikon.
For older games, like I don't really care about not having a manual or not. You know, newer games sometimes you have to. There's so many darn buttons on the controllers now. You gotta figure out which button does what.
I know buttons.
So I hear you there, but I mean, what I actually found interesting was there was a ton of games. For example, Blaster Master. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that one.
I've never heard of Blaster Master.
I'll have to tell you about Blaster Master
Is there
sometime.
a story about it?
I'll have to tell you sometime. But here's the thing, right? So I bought the game used from a friend of mine back when I was a kid, and all I got was the game in the plastic sleeve there. And so I played through Blaster Master. This is before, you know, I didn't have the Nintendo Power issue if there was one that featured Blaster Master. I didn't have the one that featured it. We didn't really have the internet like in the way that we have it now, so it's not like I could go online and like find a walkthrough or anything. I found my way through all of Blaster Master, clear to the end, on my own. Imagine my surprise when, like, 25 years later, I get this in a lot of manuals. And what do I see? But they give you a complete map. They tell you what levels are connected to what levels. And then they even go so far as to, like, I mean, they go pretty detailed.
It's like having
So I guess what I was surprised about was, as I looked at other old games for the Nintendo that I thought were like pretty easy pick up and play and everything, there were all these, like, every now and then there'd be an extra move that I never knew about, or there'd be, you know, shoot this area for a bonus or something like that I had no clue about. So I gained kind of a whole new appreciation, even in the NES era, for just, you know, the utility of the manuals. It was kind of like, you know, you could play the game and beat it without it, but in some cases, I mean, the game just becomes so much more enjoyable and simpler because, you know, they gave you the resources that you needed right in the box.
It's like the old like Atari 2600 games. They had a whole backstory in the manual, which was like most of the manual was a story for the game. But
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, that's kind of one of the big things that I think of with the older manuals is that they got all the backstory. I mean, Super Metroid right here, this is basically how you also got your information about the enemies. And where, I mean, with a more recent game like Prime, they have all that information inside the game itself.
Yeah, it's inside the game, or if you want to have it outside the game, right, you end up having to buy one of the guides, right?
Yeah. But, I mean, the more I think about it, the more I see why manuals are kind of going away a bit. They're getting more of that information inside of the game itself. So there's less that they need to actually print.
and
Yeah.
plus, printing all those manuals costs so much money.
Yeah.
Everything's online now, and just like all these camera manuals, you used to have a camera manual that was like this thick. Now it's like a leaflet, and everything is on a CD, or you just download it from the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely see. I agree. I think that that's what a lot of what's driving it is it's just so easy to find that supplemental information either online or within the game itself. You know, most games now start with a tutorial level that kind of takes you through the controls and that kind of thing. Neil Patrick Harris, what are your thoughts on manuals?
I would prefer them, but it's not a big deal if you don't come with it. I'm more one of the guys, I have to have a case for a CD-based game. That's my important thing. If it doesn't have a case, I don't want it.
Now, do you mean just the case, like just the plastic jewel case? Like,
Yeah, it has to have the
well,
cover.
this
and
is
everything.
music, but are you talking like just a plastic jewel case, or are you talking like
The original
you
case.
need to have the manual in the case as well? Are you cool with it being like this?
Yeah, you can have
Sorry,
the
sorry.
manual list, fine. As long as it has the original. No, it has to have the cover.
Okay, great. All right. Yeah. Well, because in those days, right, the cover was also usually the manual was the cover, right?
I'll
Yeah,
talk about
most
more like
cases.
PS2, Xbox. Talk about more of those.
Yeah,
Or
like
in
what
the-
hold back up Red Blaze, like that, right? Like what Red Blaze just held up. Hold it up again for us?
Yeah, like that. I have to have the cover at least.
Yeah, but this one's the odd one in my collection because it's the Dreamcast game with the Dreamcast manual, but it's got the PS1 backing on it.
Oh, okay.
It did not have one when I got it, and I just so happened to have an extra copy of Resident Evil 3 on the PS1. Well, at least the back casing for it, so I just put it on there just so it at least looks a little bit completer.
Yeah. I had all kinds of respect for you until I realized that, you know, you kind of faked it. Now I just don't know what to believe.
That's the only one that's like that.
I just, you know, I'd like to believe you, but I don't.
You want me to pull every single one of those down?
We don't have time for that in the show, but we'll do a follow-up show where you pull every single one of those off the shelf and you prove to us that they are what they're supposed to be.
You know what? I'll just pull it over every single one.
Now, although since Red Blaze, since you're speaking up for this portion of it, I want to ask how you feel about games that come with paper manuals that tell you how to find the electronic manual in the game.
I don't know. It's just one of those stupidest things. I'm sorry.
Is it the kind of thing that would make you rage?
No.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, no.
Could you rage? If
Like
you
I
wanted
said, it's
to.
just stupid, but ever since I started to get Vita games, it's kind of like, I kind of wish that there was something in that little slot right there, just because it's there for no reason otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know what would be cool, though, right? This would be interesting. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Like, what if they were to make the game, right, sell it without the manual, and then maybe, like, have, like, a game guide or a manual or whatever that would fit in the spot where the manual would normally go. So if you are fine with getting it without the manual, you just go ahead and get the game, right, and then you're fine. But if you wanted the manual, you could actually, for a couple extra bucks, get the manual, have it shipped to you, and have a complete game.
I would
Even
do
if
that
it wasn't
depending how much
like,
it was.
what was that?
I would do it depending how much the manual was.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that like that the publisher would have to do it. I'm saying like Brady and all these companies that are going to make game guides anyway. I think it'd be interesting if they'd entertain like a pocket version of the manual, or some version of the the game guide that would actually fit in that spot where the manuals used to go. Because you're right, Red Blaze, it's kind of a waste now that they have these cases that are perfect for holding game and manual, and now they just have game and empty spot where manual used to be.
Yeah, at least throw in a little bit of artwork there. Just even like a little promotional thing.
Yeah.
That
Tyler, you've been silent up to this point. What are your thoughts?
nice, but
You
Oh,
know,
what was that?
Yeah. Here, speak up, Jen.
I mean, one thing that I was thinking of was just how I would order a manual from Nintendo itself, because the game that I got didn't have one, and it was really cheap that you weren't going to pass it up otherwise.
Yeah.
Jenny just like pointed out something. Like when they were just making a transition from records to CDs. I don't know how many of you remember the old CD cases. You had your CD up in the top. There was a big sleeve about like this huge. They were still using the old racks that held the records in, so they had to have these ginormous, CD cases.
Yeah.
Half of it was a box, and the CD was just at the top part of the case.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't see those. I'll have to look those up after the show, because I think I remember what you're talking about. I must have only seen them like once and been like, what the hell was that? But I don't. It's not coming to the forefront of my mind. But I do remember something to that effect. So because they were trying to support the old shelving with the new inventory, right?
Yeah.
Was the deal? Tyler, what are your thoughts on manuals? Yay or nay?
I like them for all the reasons they've already mentioned. I think, especially with the older games, as was mentioned, you get the story, but most of the older games, as far as like the instructions go, they weren't really needed, because you only had one or two buttons and a control pad, So the games were simpler. They didn't need a whole lot of explanation, but it's nice to have, especially in certain, like with Blaster Master, like you mentioned. The original Metroid manual has a whole story. It's like a 3 or 4 page long story about Metroid, which is kind of cool because you don't get that now. But yeah, I mean, I like them, but with newer games, they're not necessary. I don't feel like, because of all the tutorials and all the other things that go along with that.
Gotcha. So Tyler, since you went last on the first topic, I'm going to give you first crack at the second topic there. What are your thoughts regarding? I hesitate to use verses because I don't want it to be like good, evil, that kind of thing. Although there are certainly good and bad to each. But what are your thoughts in regards to digital content? If you juxtapose it with digital content, do you have a preference, and if so, why? What do you like best about either format?
I do have a preference, and we kind of went over this a little bit last episode, maybe before, I don't remember. But I prefer to have physical media whenever possible. I mean, if it's not an option, okay, I'll deal. And there's good and bad about both. I think as far as physical, the pros you actually have something. You can look at it, you can hold it, you can sell it, you can throw it away, you can do whatever the hell you want with it, because it's yours. With digital, you don't have that. All you have is a file on a computer or a console or whatever. Cons as far as physical is it's a space issue. If you get a ton of games like Red Blaze has there, you have this whole room full of stuff, which some people like, some people don't. That's a personal issue, for whoever. But I don't know. I mean, there's good and bad about both. Like with digital, the games are being pulled all the time. I know we've talked about this before. There's games out there that once they pull them, they're not coming back. And
that's true.
As far as like I've mentioned this before, but I kind of have the mindset of like a preservationist. I want the stuff to last and be played by people 50 years from now, 100 years from now, if they even want to. But I feel like having that out there for people to play and to experience is important. If you take like any other media, like books or movies or anything else, they age, yes, but they're still there.
I think of it as I'm kind of like you in that respect, and that I think of it kind of like, okay, imagine that Tom Sawyer were to be deleted from history.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that the works of Picasso were to be deleted from history. Imagine the Apollo moon landing deleted from history, right? When you say it that way, it kind of sounds absurd, and I know we're talking. I mean, some people would say we're just talking games here, but we've talked before about it, and I mentioned I think that some games are art. They mix music and artwork, whether it's drawn or computer rendered, in such a way that it creates an experience. I think that they're a unique kind of art because when I go to a museum and I look at a painting, there's nothing really interactive with it besides me staring at the canvas. Even when I watch a movie, right? Even if it's a 3D movie, it's still, I'm not interacting with it. I'm just sitting there and kind of consuming it. But with a game, game is its own art in my book because it's art that you can actually see, you can hear. With stuff like the Wii and the Move and the Kinect, you can actually touch, that kind of thing. So it's a very interactive art, and it's an art that it started with the creator, but the art is not really fully formed until it provides an experience in your home. So you are actually a part of bringing out the art in that particular product. Resident Evil by itself, right, would just be a coaster, and when you pop it in, if all you did was sit there and watch it, it would be, a film. But then when you play it, it becomes an experience, which is really unique to you and your particular playthrough. And the fact that someone else may not be able to have their own unique artistic experience with that, to me, it's tragic on two fronts. It's tragic for the person who's missing out on it, although they probably are just unaware. But it's tragic for the person that created it, who poured their heart and soul into that work, only for it to ultimately become forgotten. I don't think when Mark Twain was writing his books, or when Picasso, was painting his paintings, I don't think either of these guys wanted to be forgotten. And some of these artists actually died thinking that nobody cared about their work, and it was kind of devastating for them, only for their work to like explode bigger than they could have possibly imagined, once they were gone. So
yeah.
To think that that'll never happen with some of these games, people that slept on the floor, that skipped birthdays, that skipped, anniversaries and stuff. Some cases, people that maybe even like, lost family in a very real way because they were constantly at work just to finish something off and make it awesome. And now, whoever didn't see it the first run won't get to see it. That's kind of tragic.
Yeah, and I mean, you can debate the art issue all day. I mean, people have different opinions on if video games are art.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't deny that games are a very integral part of our culture nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think you could find a person alive, well, I mean, over the age of 10
Right.
that doesn't know who Pac-Man is.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's insane how much it's become a part of our culture, and it's an important part.
Yeah.
Maybe not the most important, but it's still important.
So Red Blaze, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, one thing to think about is that there have already been games that have been lost to us because of digital. I mean, most recent example would be the PT demo. And, I mean, you can go back to the Famicom Sataview and the Sega Channel. There are games that were on there that you're never going to see any sort of cartridge for. So those are pretty much lost in history. I mean, yeah, there are some repos of some of those, like the Zelda Parallel or BS, and all those just already lost. There are a bunch that are just lost to history. We'll never know pretty much like what they were or anything like that.
Yeah, I've actually got a list. I'll show it in a little bit once everybody's been able to give their thoughts. I actually have it's a short list, not at all meant to be comprehensive, but this is just a list of games that in the last 2 to 3 years have been delisted from various different online services.
Yeah, also just they can disappear out of nowhere, like with the 19 games that Sega took off of the mobile market.
Yes. Yeah, my list doesn't include those. That's the thing, too, is I think a lot of people are thinking, like, when they think games getting delisted, they think, oh, if the game was crappy, why do you care? But, certain games, like one game I've been plugging the hell out of the last couple of shows, I feel both sad and like an ass. Yeah, I track. I feel both sad and like an ass because I've been plugging the hell out of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World because it's such a fantastic game. It's been delisted since December. I had no idea. And the reason I had no idea is because it was one of the best-selling games on the PSN and Xbox Live for a while. And to see it like gone because they don't want to renew a license is kind of tragic. Or either they don't want to, or it's not viable for them to do it. So I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, this will always be around. The digital versions won't always be, and God forbid your hard drive crashes. You're gonna lose that and not have a way to get it back.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Fighter Pilot. I'm sorry, Tyler. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just want to interject one little thing.
Go ahead.
That I think doesn't get mentioned enough is that developers and the video game companies they're taking such an anti-piracy stance on everything nowadays, and by delisting these things and making them hard to get, they're driving people who would ordinarily buy this stuff to piracy in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I know one thing. One thing that I've begun doing, not piracy, but one thing I have begun doing that I was never inclined to do before. I bought a Philips CDI, and I got myself a copy of Burn Cycle, a complete Burn Cycle. It had everything. It had the manuals. It had the little the letter that he gets in the mail and all that other stuff. It had all that little stuff. And I was starting to play the game, and then I'd notice I'd get this disc is dirty or damaged. And first I thought okay, the laser's kind of going, and so I'm trying to play it. I get another disc is dirty or damaged. So I take the disc out and I look at it, and I notice a black dot on the disc that wasn't there before, and I'm like, what the hell? How did I? Now I checked this before I put it in, and the disc was mint, right? And so I put the disc back in, right, and I try to play it again, and I got past the spot where it had skipped out before, but then it skipped out in a new spot. So I take the disc back out and I look at it, and there's another spot on it. The material on the disc had degraded to such a degree that the heat of the laser, if it had to retry a spot too many times, it would actually make the paint on the top of the disc brittle enough to fleck off. So my point is even physical stuff, right? Especially CD, physical media, can sometimes not withstand the test of time. But what I did was, I took the disc in its current state, popped it into my CD-ROM drive on my PC, and at a very low speed, I dumped an ISO of that thing while I could, burned a copy of the ISO, and now the original copy of Burn Cycle stays in the case, and whenever I play on the Philips CDI, I always play from burned disc now.
Yeah.
So I do think there's a place for digital, and there's a place for physical. And we can also talk a little later about the Sega Game Gear, and how well that's withstood the test of time. Not very. But at least with physical, you've got a chance that you can bring it back. So I think physical and digital definitely have their place. But you're right. I mean, if you look at some of the more draconian laws, right? I mean, taking apart your Game Gear and fixing it, people could go back and forth on whether or not you're breaking the law by doing that. When you make a backup of your own game because you don't want it to die just because of old age, people will make arguments both ways as to whether or not you're actually pirating the game or just making a legit backup.
Yeah, I don't think piracy is necessarily a bad thing. I don't think it's a good thing. It has a place.
Yeah.
Good or bad.
Yeah, for me, I guess the biggest issue is when you have... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Red, you're going to say something.
I was just going to say that with the newer stuff, they don't read the paint on top of the disc. Instead, it's actually embedded in the disc, and just right here I got my Sonic Adventure on the GameCube, and as you can see, some nice little scarring on there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it got there. That's how it was when I got it. But it still plays perfectly.
Nice.
As far as this game can.
Fighter Pilot, do you have any thoughts?
Clipping.
Yeah, I definitely prefer physical. I do not like digital at all. I've actually had, a PSN when they have free games. You download digital. I liked it and actually went out and bought the physical copy so I could have the physical copy. Games are really different when it comes to digital compared to music, movies. Because with music and movies, you can pretty much download a computer and listen and watch it from there. Or you can't do that right now for a PS4 game or an Xbox One game or some older games. It's hard to find some of those things out there.
Yeah, I definitely hear you.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather pay $10 for Earthbound, not a digital version of that, instead of $200 plus for the cartridge version.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I do like what Nintendo does with the Virtual Console. In terms of what I like specifically is that they price things very reasonably. I've seen other vendors, but they'll put games up on the PlayStation Network, like Dino Crisis or something, and they'll try to fetch what the game, would have gone for 15 years ago. It's like, okay, Dino Crisis, I want to play it. I don't $30 want to play it.
Yeah.
There's definitely some decline in its value over time. At least when you're comparing it to something like Infamous, Second Son or something like that. So, but I think Nintendo does very well, right? And it's very. What I'm proud of them for is that it's very uniform. If it's a Super Nintendo game, it's going to cost a certain amount. If it's a Nintendo game, it's going to cost a certain amount. It doesn't matter what Nintendo game it is. It doesn't matter what Super Nintendo game it is. This is the price. And I don't know how they've been able to do that, and maybe this is part of what's limited their selection so much. Because I know with licensed content, it can be a lot more difficult. But I do have to give them props for, you're not going to see, an Earthbound suddenly come out for Virtual Console for $50 because they know that people are paying $100 for it. Earthbound's going to come out and it's going to be the same amount that Super Metroid was.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason why I think
was more.
What's that?
Earthbound actually was I think it was $9, and
Was it?
everything else was 7, I think.
Well, they also remade the strategy guide that would come with the big boxes for that, so that's how I can see why that's a little bit higher than the rest.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not complaining. I'm just stating.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, and it's still a far cry from, I saw some stuff on PSN that was just ridiculous. Like, games that I can go buy used for, like, $2, they're selling for, like, $40.
Yeah, and we're...
PlayStation Now is the biggest ripoff of all time. It's like, I can rent it for 4 hours for 3 times the cost that I could buy it off of the PlayStation Store. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever.
It's so many.
Yeah, and where, I mean, like I said, I'll go physical over digital. I mean, Bloodstain, I backed and got the physical version of that. And back in January, I actually imported Infamous First Light from the UK, and
Really?
that was free on PSN at the time.
That's pretty cool. I'm going to write that one down. I actually did not know that you could get that one in physical.
Yeah, but I mean, it was like $30, I believe.
I don't care.
I'll say something real quick. Kyle, my friend Kyle, he has Earthbound. Kyle, sell me your copy. Talk on my Facebook right now. He won't sell to me now.
Sell it to him for $1. No, sell it to him for 98 cents. He's got to get a better deal. If you get a better deal than Flea, you'll go down in history.
Gotta go to Rockford
Yeah,
again.
speaking of people who like physical over digital,
Just like pay him whatever you pay him, but have him give you a receipt for like 98 cents, and then like post it on VG Collect and just like, hey, check it out, Flea. I was just like tooling around, going to a yard sale, didn't find anything, and then I felt inspired to like stop at this one last place, and I found Earthbound for 98 cents.
So,
I traded some kid a cookie for it.
so we agree that Kyle should sell me his copy for $1.
The kid said he wanted $1.50, but I told him I only had $1 on me. So
I'll take you guys on Thursday. See if he sells it to me.
you know, I'm still pissed that I didn't get to a yard sale sooner the one time. Because I found a whole box of strategy guides, including like Secret of Mana, Link to the Past, Earthbound, the Breath of Fire series. I found all the strategy guides for them, and they apparently already sold off the games. And I only picked up the box of strategy guides with pretty much a whole bunch of Super Nintendo RPGs and some N64 game strategy guides for like $12. So who knows how well I could have done on the
who
games.
knows how cheap the games went for, right?
Yeah.
Just get him out. Just get him out of here. I don't want him to clutter. So, Mr. Nikon, physical or digital?
I like physical. You know, like having actual, the cartridges and the cases. You know, it's nice to hold the cartridge in your hand. You know, I haven't really done too much digital stuff. I just, recently redeemed my Club Nintendo points for, what I got? I got Mario Kart for Super Nintendo and Legend of Zelda for Super Nintendo. I had enough points for those two. I'm like, I'll get these two. So, those are the first 2 real digital copies I actually downloaded of anything, so.
Nice.
Besides, like, mobile games, but that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, games are getting delisted from mobile devices all the time for a variety of reasons. Either licenses expire, or the other more popular one is the phone operating systems change so intensely between versions that a lot of these games, I could definitely see for EA, right? Okay, you made NBA Jam like 5 years ago for the iPhone, and now you just want to move on, but Apple keeps releasing new iOS updates, and for no apparent reason, what worked in the previous one doesn't work on the new one unless you push out yet another update. It's kind of crazy. So I could see at some point them just saying, look, the hell with it, delist. We can't afford to keep every, year hiring a temp contractor to come in to recompile for the new iOS.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's tragic because it's like, you want your games to kind of transfer with you from one device to the other. Sometimes it doesn't even look on the surface like the operating system has changed that much, but it's changed just enough to where NBA Jam doesn't work anymore and you're pissed. So that's actually the game that I'm specifically pissed about that doesn't work on here, because EA actually didn't update. It's been like 2 years. They didn't update. They updated all the player rosters, all that other stuff. It doesn't work on iPhone 6 Plus.
Well, I mean, your first problem there is that you bought an iPhone.
Careful, guys. We want the Apple fanboys trolling us the rest of the week.
Yeah. That's spoken by that's spoken like someone who wishes they had my iPhone.
I think I still have
good.
the old iPhone 3 sitting in a drawer somewhere.
What is that? Is that a tablet?
Old
Yeah.
days.
Red Blaze got. Oh, what's Red got there? Fighter Pilot? That's an iPhone 4, right? 4S?
I don't know iPhone. So. I just don't sound as old anymore.
That's fine. That's what I started out with. I had one of those iPhone 4s.
So did I. Yeah. I have a 5C now.
Yeah.
I've got a Note 4.
My Galaxy's downstairs charging.
What was it that you were holding up before? Was that a tablet?
Yeah.
Good. I was gonna say if that's a phone, then you have to look like an idiot when you're out in public.
But haven't you seen the Galaxy Notes?
Hello?
That big
Yes?
old Android phone.
I've got.
I don't see you. Where are you? I don't see you. I can't. You
Doesn't
said
fit.
you'd meet me here.
Not fitting.
Although some phones, right? I've seen some like the Samsungs. Some of those are pretty darn huge, though.
The Notes.
Yeah, the Note
Yeah, I
4
have
is
one
about the
that's
size of
crazy big.
the
Yeah.
6C.
And what? The 6 Plus also?
Yeah. Although what's cool about the
Note
Note,
ripoff?
the Note is a lot more pressure sensitive, though, right? Like I've seen people like actually like drawing and sketching on those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got that pen.
Well, also the bigger surface helps a lot.
So, and I think that's part of what drives the incompatibility, because I know, like, not every generation, but usually every major generation, Apple or Android or Samsung or whoever, right? They'll push the sizes of the screens around a bit. Sometimes they'll be a little wider, sometimes they'll be a little taller, and I think what breaks these games, honestly, is just they're expecting fixed resolutions. And when you hit a phone that's not that fixed resolution, and it's not any of the ones that match, I think it just wreaks havoc with it. So I think the games that can... I've noticed that there's 3 kinds of games, right? The games that will continue to play, but for some reason they only like take up a portion of the screen and they look all like weird. Then there'll be games that they just crash instantly as soon as you go to open them, probably because they can't initialize the display at the new resolution. And then you'll have the games that just work just fine, and they make full use of the screen, which have probably been coded to just detect what the resolution is and upscale to it, which is the right way.
So basically, they should make them more like they do the PC ports.
Absolutely, yeah. They should just make it auto-detect a certain resolution, and you know, if you either upscale to whatever the closest one is that you understand, right, or just default to some lowest common denominator that you know will work, you know, on that device. I would rather have it be where like it's kind of, you know, the screen is smaller than what I'd expect it to be, but the game's still there and it plays, than have the game like just totally crash entirely, because then you've paid for something that you can't even use.
Yeah. I try to stick to the free games, so.
Me too.
Yeah. So, but I did mention before that we bring it up. It's important to know, if I can find where I have it here. It's important to know that not even the physical stuff. We already talked about CDs that can deteriorate with age. Another thing that does not hold up well to age. Finally got my hands on it. In fact, I got my hands on 2 of them. The Game Gears, absolutely notorious for capacitor problems. it'd be one thing if they just stopped working, but they stopped working in a really horrible way. The capacitors actually leak all over the mainboard, and they leak really toxic and highly acidic stuff. So if you don't get inside and clean them up and replace the caps, in short order, it can actually cause permanent damage to the system. But if you've got a system like this that you just dug out of your garage, or it's still in your garage and you think it still works just fine, take it out, and what you're probably going to find is that when you flip the switch, you're going to get some kind of little... let me plug it in, I can show you.
The glass screens, it turns off right away. That's what mine used to do.
You're going to get all kinds of wonderful goodness that's not good.
While you're doing that, I'm going to show you some old phones I used to own.
Oh, nice.
What is
games
it,
you got on there? You got Snake on there?
That's old.
Those are nothing wrong with those phones. Back when a phone was a phone.
I wish I saw my original phone, the big old brick phones. They're like this big.
We got one of those old Motorola Dynatacs at my work in the box in the basement.
There's one thing that, speaking of the Game Gear and capacitors and all that,
Yeah.
it's not just the Game Gears. I mean, there's anything of that era is probably going to have capacitor issues, because there was a huge, I don't know all the specifics of it, but I've heard that there was a shortage, I believe, of something, so they used a different kind of capacitor in a lot of different things, and they're all going to fail.
Yeah, a lot of...
Isn't also the TurboGrafx one of the ones that got like a bunch of bad capacitors?
Yeah, the TurboGrafx 16 definitely had it. The thing though is like pretty much
Turbo Express.
But Sega in general, right? Because I remember what you're talking about, and that definitely there was a legit like bad batch. I think it was like counterfeit caps that are being sold, or something like that, or maybe I don't remember the full details. It might have been too, like you said, like maybe there was like a rare war mineral or something like that they weren't able to get, so they swapped it for something else. But the general gist was like the caps were not made with the same grade materials that they were typically made with, and so they were only good for a certain period of time. And of course they didn't realize this when they were manufacturing this stuff. But insult to injury though is that the word on the street is, and I have no proof to back this up, so I say word on the street, and that makes it instantly credible. But the word on the street was that Sega actually, used the cheapest caps that they could get, because the Game Gear, it was the most expensive portable next to, I think, the Turbo Express. I think you had Turbo Express, Sega Game Gear, Atari Lynx, and then the Game Boy, right? I think is the way that it went in expense. So one of the things that they did to try to keep the costs of the Game Gear down was they used cheaper stock parts. So there definitely was that whole time period with the poor quality caps, but then supposedly they added insult to injury by going as cheap as they could. So what happens now is if you take these out of your garage and you fire it up, chances are you're going to get something... let me see, I don't even know if that actually even... Yep, did you see it for like a split second?
That's what mine used to do too.
It kind of comes up and then it kind of dies. And you can play around with the contrast, but it still doesn't really... Okay, now if I turn the contrast all the way up, it just dies instantly, but if I turn it down, it'll at least stay alive for a little bit. But now, take this thing open, desolder the old caps, solder new caps on of the right kind, and it's back up and playable. So that's the cool thing. Like a CD. If you notice the CD's kind of starting to go shady and stuff, but it hasn't really died yet, you can make a backup of the CD, burn the backup, and then if it's an older system where either the DRM has been broken or you have a mod chip, you can play your backup until your heart's content. And if the backup starts to go, you can always, if you've archived the ISOs, you can always just burn another copy of your backup. So I'm a fan of physical stuff. I'm with Mr. Nikon. I like the cartridges. I like the look of them. I like the sound of them getting put in the back. I like all of that. The emulators and stuff don't really do it for me unless I'm trying to record like gameplay footage or something like that. So it's probably going to happen with this guy. He's also notorious for bad battery life. The other thing that's cool about physical stuff is that it can make awesome comebacks. So if you look online, there's plenty of places for anywhere from $9. I've seen them as cheap as $9 to as expensive as $25, depending on how high grade you want the caps to be. You can get replacement cap kits that have every single cap that you need to replace on the board. The other thing, they have LED light kits, so you can replace the cathode ray backlight with an actual LED backlight. Supposedly improves the battery life by like 8 times. So instead of it only lasting like an hour, you could actually have 8 hours of gaming on your Game Gear with better, more even light than the original light that it came with. So, you know, stuff like that is pretty darn cool when you can take something old like that and, you know, give it new life.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what I do. You know, as I fix the old stuff and try to, you know, keep them
And
going.
in general, the Game Gear library hasn't really seen a lot of love, either in emulation or in, you know, Virtual Console. There's only been a small handful of games that have actually made it from Game Gear physical to digital. So most of that library is really just kind of lost to time.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, the only ones I know that you can really actually get are the Sonic ones through Sonic Adventure DX and the Gems collection.
Yeah, the Ultimate Genesis Collection. Yeah, you're
No, the
absolutely right.
Gems. I'm talking about.
Well, Gems too, yeah, but I think
Yeah,
they're
that
also
had
having an
Sonic
Ultimate
Speed,
Genesis,
Sonic
right?
Fighter, and shoot, Sonic R.
Yes. Yes.
How can I
So,
forget about that one?
so I think the other thing that's really interesting is that if you look at where I've got an interesting set right here. I've got Okami HD for the PlayStation 3, the version that was released in Japan. The Japanese version, a lot of people think it's the Asian version only, mainly because PlayAsia was selling them, but they didn't make 80 different copies of the same game. There's only really one copy of Okami, and all copies of Okami have the English subtitles as well as the Japanese. The only thing that determines what language the game is played in is the region of the console that is played in. So if you play it on an American PS3, you'll be reading English subtitles. If you play it on a Japanese PS3, you'll be looking at Japanese subtitles. But so don't hesitate to pick it up if you find it of any variety, because it is in English. But you're only going to find you're not going to find an American PS3 physical copy of it. You're only going to find a digital. However, the sequel, you will find a physical copy of. I don't want to give any spoilers away to the game, but it is a sequel, picks up where this one left off. I thought it was really interesting that in North America we'd have a sequel released for a portable system for something that was digital only on all the next-gen systems. That was kind of funny.
Not to mention when it originally came out, it didn't even come out on a Nintendo system.
Right.
It only got ported to the Wii later.
Yeah, it first came out on PS2, right?
Yeah.
Then they went to Wii, and then it came out on the PlayStation 3. And I have to say, you know, it's basically Wind Waker with a dog.
You know, why haven't they put it into the Wii U?
That's what I was wondering too. I think the Wii U touch controls would be absolutely perfect for it. They could release it as WiiWare, or not WiiWare. They don't call it that anymore, but they could release it as, you know,
On the Virtual Console.
on the Virtual Console, and it would certainly be, you know, it certainly would make great use of. It's meant for the touch screen, I think. So, but another game that you can get physical that used to be digital, DuckTales Remastered. Various different platforms. It was digital only. Now you can get it physical. This game, I would say, if you have not purchased it digitally, get a physical copy or a digital copy, but
Get it soon.
But play it.
get it because this is a licensed game. And just like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and other games, when the license expires, if they decide there's not enough money in it for them to renew the license, this game, the digital, will go bye-bye.
Yeah.
The original DuckTales.
So, most of
I mean,
you know...
Another licensed one to look out for would be Lego City Undercover.
Yes.
Because
Yes,
that
absolutely.
was only published by Nintendo. Who knows when that deal will
That's a
go
good...
through. I mean, it's hard enough to find an actual physical version of it, but who knows when the digital will go.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I think we just take it for granted because it's Lego, and Lego tends to hold on to their licenses like till the end of time. But I didn't actually realize until a couple months earlier that it was a Nintendo-only thing. I didn't realize that it had been an exclusive until I tried to find it on PS3 for my son's birthday, and I couldn't find it. And then I found out it's because I'm an idiot.
Well, at least you figured it out.
Well, yeah, you know, I'd rather figure out that I'm an idiot this early in life, and then I can cope with it, and
Yeah,
you know, go through my life thinking I'm awesome, and then I find out, oh my goodness, I was an idiot.
But yeah, personally, it's my favorite Lego game. Definitely go check it out if you haven't already.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. That's quite an endorsement. Another game that's really a good game, digital only here in the U.S., but you can get it the Japanese version, and it has I think both English voiceover and English subtitles. If you get the physical one, Resident Evil HD remake for PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
So it's another one of those. It's $30 if you buy it for the. It's $30 if you buy it for the physical copy versus $20 if you buy it digital. But I guess it depends on how much you trust your PlayStation 3 hard drive to never die and how much you trust the PlayStation Network to always allow you to re-download your PS3 digital purchases.
Yeah, and it's odd because I know that the PS4 also has a physical version, but what I've heard, it doesn't have the English translation on it, which is kind of odd.
Which one doesn't?
The PS4 version.
Oh, yeah, I didn't read about the PS4 version.
From what I've read, I don't know, I might have read it wrong, and it's been a while since I've actually read it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's another issue, I guess, that I have with digital that we didn't really talk about. But you talking about the internet and never knowing if the internet has it right or wrong made me think of it. Physical games, right? At least back in when you're thinking like physical games of like this variety or of the Nintendo variety, the Sega Genesis variety, when you release the game, it damn well better have worked. Right? There was none of this like, oh, don't worry, ship it now, make your release date, and then have them sit in front of a 5-hour downloading patches screen, as soon as they get it home because there's already a day one patch. None of that flew back in the day. Either your crap worked or it didn't get released. And if it got released and it didn't work, like Battletoads, when you get to the Klinger Winger stage and you can't get through it with 2 people. Sorry, Nintendo, that's your version of the game. You can't finish the game with 2 players. Thank you, Rare. Try again next time. But, nowadays
people will
it
still
seems
call
like every
GameStop to
single
ask about
game...
that.
What was that?
So people will still call GameStop to ask about that game.
But like now, it just seems like everybody's just accepted that you download a game and they kind of expect. Like I've even seen people get pissed off when they download a game, they pop it in, and there's not like a day one patch or a day one DLC or something. Like people now want actually there to be content that's missing from the game on its release, so that they have something to do when they bring it home other than play it. It's kind of bizarre.
Well, there's a couple different things going on now with like I'm sure you've heard about this, the new retro console that's supposed to be coming out here sometime soon.
I did hear about that.
Yeah, I mean, and they're talking about going back to those old ways where games on a cartridge damn well better work.
Yeah.
which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I admire what they're going for, but ultimately, and I hope I don't tick them off if they watch the show, but I think it's going to fail, and here's why. I don't think that their idea is a bad idea, and I don't think that what they're going for is a bad thing to go for. But I want to pull up some information for you guys to show you, like, the way that we think, right? The love of the physical stuff and all that kind of stuff. My friends, if you didn't know it already, you're about to find out. We're in such the minority.
Oh, I'm sure.
So, what I'm showing right now is from the ESA, and the ESA is the entertainment. What was it?
Software, something like that.
Yeah, this is from the Entertainment Software Association. And basically, they did a study in 2014 about different trends and stuff, and they've actually done it for a couple of years. And what you're seeing here in this pie chart, right? The area in light blue is the area that is represented by totally digital, meaning the entire game is digital. And what you're seeing in the darker blue is the totally physical. The trend has been up until you have last year. Last year, digital only games, right? Pretty much took up more than 50% of sales compared to physical only games. So people in general, over half the people now are totally cool with their games being digital and not having any physical ties whatsoever. What's that?
Is this also mobile gaming?
What's that? This does not. This is not mobile gaming. This is console video games. And in fact, this is console video games, and I'll have to double check.
It includes mobile apps. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh wait, yeah. So this includes digital games, digital add-on content, mobile apps, and social network gaming.
Yeah, and also with stuff like that, you gotta remember that pretty much the PC itself is just purely digital. There's really no reason to pick up an actual disc of it, because all it'll do is just give you a code for Steam nowadays, pretty much.
I think most of that thing going more digital now is most people just not wanting to wait for something to get shipped to their house or them going out to buy something physically. If they can download it right now, and play it in however long it takes to download it, instead of having to wait 2 to 3 days.
And that is one of the positive things about digital gaming. And I don't doubt for a second that that's not going to happen. I think that the days of physical media are going to be ending. Maybe next generation. I don't know.
Yeah. One of the things that I found was super interesting was that they did some other stuff on factors that were influences to people purchasing video games. Because a lot of people are like, oh, just talk more about physical, just talk more about physical. And this is where I'm going at with the retro. One of the things I think the retro is going to have a really hard time is if their information is correct that only 11% of people are influenced by word of mouth, and you have a console that is almost entirely driven by word of mouth, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I don't know that it's going to succeed. I kind of doubt it. I hope it does. I really do.
What I was hoping that they would. I want it to be successful too. But here's kind of what I was hoping would happen. When the Retron 5 came out, right? Retron 5 and all these other clone systems, you've basically taken. I'll switch away from my info view now. But basically, with the Retron 5 and things like the Super Retro Trio and things like that, the Famiclone, you basically have all these vendors that have re-legitimized this old form factor, right? And this old standard, and they've demonstrated that the big guns aren't really going to come after them for doing it. I mean, clone consoles now have existed for about 5 years or more, depending on which clone console you're talking about. And Nintendo, Sega, and the rest have yet to say boo about it. I'm kind of disappointed that we haven't seen on a larger scale. We've seen folks like, I think, Watermelon, and folks like that with like Pure Solar and stuff like that. But I was kind of hoping to see almost like a revival, like where you'd have these different folks coming out and like, you know, more underground development, more indie development on these old systems. And I think I know why we don't see it. The reason is, as an engineer, I'm throwing this out there. I think it's become so damn easy to take something like Unity and make a retro-looking game like Scott Pilgrim, that to actually go to an old system like a Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo, or even like what a retro is aspiring to be, right, where it's truly trying to be that 8-bit, 16-bit type thing, it's just so damn hard to code in assembly directly to the processor and have to do the memory management and all this other crap, when you can just pixelate the graphics that you're rendering in Unity and get a similar effect, and then you could just focus more on making the game engine awesome. So I think in some ways, right, we need to pay homage to the fact that the systems that we have now are ridiculously more capable and more competent than the older ones. So even when we're seeing what looks like a retro game on a new system, there's an awful lot more going on under the hood. To pull that off, versus the older stuff. I mean, you really had to be a hacker. You had to know exactly what the hell you were doing to eke every last drop of performance out of that thing. It was not, nothing was going to be a gimme.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no way you could get a game like Shovel Knight, for example, to run on a Super Nintendo or even further back. There's no way.
Yeah.
There's so much that you don't see that's happening, you know, like you said.
Absolutely. So, so for that reason, I think, you know, we might not see, as much as I'd love to see folks go back to those old form factors and start developing new games for Super Famicom, new games for, you know, Game Boy and things like that. I think the reason that we don't see it is it's just so damn hard. It's the development on those platforms is something of a lost art, and the need to develop on a platform that archaic and that limited is no longer why bother. If I need a system that limited, I will emulate one. Right?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, have you been into the homebrew thing at all?
Absolutely have, yeah.
Because I know there's a lot going on, like with the Atari 2600, the Atari 8-bit computers. I mean, there's like phenomenal games coming out for these things. Compared to what's out now, is not phenomenal. But for what they have to work with, they're great.
Absolutely. Panky the Panda for the Atari 2600 is one of the best platforming games that's ever been released on the system, and 99% of the people that have had an Atari have no idea it even exists. So there's also a Pac-Man, an 8K version of Pac-Man for the 2600 that is almost done and is near arcade perfect.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. But I guess what I was going for, so I don't want to downplay anybody that's doing that kind of stuff. There's certainly stuff like that going on, and it's amazing. But I guess what I was getting at was I was hoping that someone would come out and like mainstream it, right? I was hoping that we'd see like at least one company with some weight behind it say, hey, you know what? There's going to be a new Mega Man, and it's going to be,
and see, that's what I've read with this. I can't think of what the name is, but the new retro console thing. They said that they were talking with like Capcom, for example, to say, you know, you haven't done anything with Ghosts and Goblins in, you know, however many years. How about you put it on this kind of thing? Yeah. So I think that would be a great idea if they could get those kind of companies on board.
Yeah, I think unfortunately Capcom's going to say, how about we release Mega Man 1 through 6 on the iPhone through emulation, and we make 1,800,000 times the cash that we'd make making a game for your console that nobody's heard of.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to slam the retro guys. I think what they're doing is absolutely amazing. And if the price is right, I'll probably end up getting one to have it. I think the other thing that they've done, which, okay, cool, I want to tip my hat from the nostalgia factor, but then I don't know if that's the choice I would make. I don't know that I would model my console look and feel off of one of the biggest console failures to grace the market. Specifically,
But it's one of the best dental tools out there.
What was that?
It was one of the best dental tools out there.
As a kid, I wanted an Atari Jaguar so bad. Now, as an adult, I think I dodged a bullet. But you know,
my
the
major
nostalgia
concern-
factor in me says awesome. But you know, part of me says, you know, why not? If you really want people to adopt it, why not pick a console that's more? Why not pick a console that was more popular, that has instant brand recognition? That, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but from a cost standpoint, you know, because I read about that too. Somebody asked them why Jaguar,
Mhm.
and the answer was, you know, because they got the toolings for both the console and the cartridges for a song, you know, way less than it would cost to make something on their own, or, you know, because like if you went after like Nintendo,
Yeah.
Nintendo would shut you down immediately. You know, if
Well, if you tried
make
to do,
something.
if you tried to do an exact, knockoff, but if you did something more like what Hyperkin did with the Retron 5, right? Everybody that looks at the Retron 5, the gray version, knows exactly what they were trying to do. They're trying to make it look like a Super Nintendo almost.
Yeah.
That said, we're over time, so it's about time to wrap it up. I would love to have folks' thoughts on the retro, good or bad. Although I don't want anybody to think I'm not a fan of the console. I'm definitely a big fan. I guess I'm just finally starting to get to that phase where I'm accepting that my preferences are not in the majority. They're not in the mainstream majority, and the things that I hold near and dear to me are going to become have already become classic, retro, old school. So,
No, you're exactly right, and I think everybody here is in the same boat.
yeah.
Yeah, and just again on the retro VGS, how accessible are the games going to be to get? Because you're probably not going to see them at like a GameStop or even like a mom and pop shop possibly.
No, you're not going to find a Walmart at that. You have to order them online.
Although, it could be, if they're smart about how they do it, if they're made to order and they do it in batches and they only sell, batches when they have enough pre-orders to fill a batch, I could see them actually, Atari Age does a great job at making, as you pointed out, Tyler, I don't know if you were talking specifically about Atari Age, but that's what came to mind.
Yeah.
Atari Age has excellent homebrewers there, a great community. They're constantly churning out new releases. I think some years they've even had like 5 or 6 new Atari releases, which is just crazy for a system that's been, quote, dead as long as the Atari 2600 homebrew scene is alive and well. You're not always going to be able to find a copy of the latest homebrew because they only do limited runs. But they do them, and they are able to make it at least worth the time that these guys put into it. So definitely check out homebrew. If you like this stuff and you want to see it continue, support it. I would love to be proven wrong about things like the retro. So by proven wrong, I mean I would love to see a community actually rise up and support the console, because I think the console itself will be a kick-ass piece of hardware, and I think the guys putting the time and effort into it are going to do an amazing job. I don't know that there's going to be a big enough community to support their effort to make it have been worth their while. I'm hoping I'm wrong.
Me too.
Hopefully they have some lock-on technology.
I know. Give us lock on. All right, folks. This has been Retro Reload. This is episode 24. I want to thank you for tuning in. Leave your comments or hate mail for me down below in the comments. Thank you.
And we have a Twitter account now, so make sure to follow.
Twitter.
Yes, we have a Twitter. So tweet our Twitter.
We got a Facebook.
Yeah.
YouTube.
We don't got our friends here.
MySpace.
We don't have a MySpace.
Zynga.
We don't have a Zynga.
Instagram.
GeoCity.
Oh, she said the whole thing. That's Jenny.
I can't believe you loaned me your podcast without telling me you didn't have Spotify.
Oh God.